There's a maniac who is kidnapping people and murdering them. And what he does is he kidnaps one person and he blindfolds them and he rolls a dice. And if that dice is a 6, then he'll kill you. If not, he'll let you go free. And what he'll do if he lets you go free is he'll go and pick up 2 people, kidnap them, blindfold them, roll the dice. If it's a 6, kills you. If it's anything else, go free. Then it's 4 people. Then it's 8 people. And it doubles. So it's an exponential
until
growth.
he hits a 6.
Until he hits a 6. Now, you wake up, knowing all this information, you wake up blindfolded. And you know these facts. And you know that a dice is about to be rolled, but you're blindfolded, you don't know how many people are there with you. You're given a button that you can press that will make the chances that you're killed half, 1 in 2. So if you want to, you can press this button, and 50% of the time it will just kill you immediately, and 50% of the time you'll get to go free. Or you can let him roll the dice.
Okay.
What do? Do you press the button or not?
So, at least on the surface.
Let's take a stab at this before they answer the question. The way he asked this question makes me feel as though the 1 in 6 chance is not as easy as it seems. It seems like a trap almost. But at the same time, the half by pushing the button of getting killed seems a little too high. So I'm not sure about this one, but I guess if I'm just going off of my intuition, I'd probably go with the 1 in 6 chance.
What do? Do you press the button or not?
So, at least on the surface, this is to do with the probability of 1 in 6 versus 1 in 2.
Yeah.
But there is this escalating thing that's happening in the background. So I would presume that you would say, don't hit the button, because that has increased the chance of you being killed from 1 in 6 to 1 in 2.
Right.
Which is great.
And this seems true. And it is true. That, yeah, I mean, like, you've got a 1 in 6 chance of dying. And if you press the button, you've got a 1 in 2. So you're better off rolling the dice. But if you think about it as a sort of as one big block, then something very strange happens, because if you consider all of the people involved, if all you know is that you've sort of woken up and you're somewhere in this process, then interestingly, like, say it gets to number 2, it gets to round 2, then there have been 3 people involved. 3 victims involved.
The
right?
first one and then the second 2.
And the second 2. And 2 of them end up dying, and 1 of them goes free. So if you find yourself in this situation as a victim, you've got a more than half probability that you're in the second group that ends up dying. I suppose that actually it ends in the third group. Right? Now there are how many people involved? You've got 1, then 2,
Then 4.
Then 4.
Yeah.
So we've now got 7 people involved, right? And 4 people end up dying. And so if you sort of wake up in this scenario, you've got a 4 in 7 chance that you're going to die, that you're going to be one of the people who dies, which is more than half. And this continues, such that if you consider the fact that it doesn't matter where it ends, you're always going to have a slightly higher than half chance that you're in the group that ends up getting killed.
But is it more than half, given that each round of the dice roll is only 1 in 6?
Yeah.
No
Because
way.
It's about, like, if in fact it gets to number 3.
Right.
Like, you know that you're going to be in there's a more than half chance that you're going to be in the group that dies. If it in fact gets to number 2, then there's a more than half chance that you're going to die. If it in fact gets to number 4...
So I'm going to hit the button. Is that right?
Well, maybe. I mean, it seems ludicrous to hit the button, but thinking about it this way, it seems like that's what you should actually do. It's
No way. How is it that each dice roll is independent, but somehow the probability of you dying is still more than 1 in 6? I'm not buying that at all. There's 2 possibilities that comes to mind here. One is that because of the increase in number of people each time the victim does not roll a 6, that it's likely that you might be in a repeated group, right? Because if, I guess by the sheer numbers of it, right? If, let's say, he doesn't roll a 6 until the 10th time, assuming that the pool of people that he's picking from are the same, then you're probably going to be in a repeated group, right? But that doesn't make a lot of sense, because if the pool is a fixed amount of people, then at some point, everybody in the pool is going to roll a 6 and they're all going to die anyway. So I don't think we're presuming that there is a fixed pool here. Another possibility seems like, what is this then called? I think it's called the gambler's fallacy, or the gambler's fallacy, where if you are rolling a dice, or let's use a basketball analogy. If you're shooting a basketball, and I've actually heard people fall into this trap before. If you're shooting a basketball and you miss the first 5, you might have this intuition that on the 6th attempt, you might be more likely to make it because you've missed the first 5. And after all, you're not going to miss it forever. At some point, you're going to make it. So it is probably more likely, it would feel, to make it on the 5th attempt. But that is actually not the case for precisely the reason that Chris gave, which is that each roll, each attempt, whether it's with a dice or with a basketball, is independent of the one prior to it. So you're not necessarily adding on a probability of making the basketball or rolling a 6 just because you're in a larger population. Whether the population that you're in happens to be 100 or just one person and that happens to be you, the chances of you dying is still 1 in 6. I feel like Alex is smuggling in this gambler's fallacy somewhere in there. I'm not able to spot exactly where, but it does seem quite fishy to say that there is a different sort of reference class of probability that we're using to determine whether or not you're going to die at a higher probability than the 1 in 6 chance. So none of these two options seem plausible, because the first one, as I said, as long as you're not being repeatedly exposed to this probability, which I think is a safe bet to assume you're not, for one, because he didn't specify that, and two, because even if you were, it runs into the other problem I was saying earlier, that everybody's going to die anyways, because at some point, if you roll this dice enough with the same victims, they're going to roll a 6 at some point. The second one is implausible because it seems to be falling into the gambler's fallacy trap, unless there's a third option here that I'm not considering, in which case I would love for you to enlighten me on this.
So I'm going to hit the button. Is that right?
Well, maybe. I mean, it seems ludicrous to hit the button, but thinking about it this way, it seems like that's what you should actually do. It's simultaneously the case that you have got a 1 in 6 chance of dying because you're doing it on the roll of a dice. But at the same time, if you think about the fact that one of these groups is going to end up dying, and it doesn't matter where it ends, the chances of you being in that group are always going to be slightly higher than half.
Right, from a population level.
That's why it's the anthropic dice killer, because it's the Anthropic Principle. It's thinking about.
Yeah, what's that? I once read a sci-fi book that was there was a threat of the end of the world. They were looking to get humanity off the planet. And there is a theory that uses almost this exact same idea, which says that if you take the entirety of human history and you were to pick a time at which you were to live, and you have this rapid increase toward humanity, it works out that it's more likely that you are within some percent of the end of humanity.
Right, yeah.
Because
of the exponential growth.
Precisely.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you familiar with this idea?
I don't think so.
Right, but it works.
But it's fascinating. It's the same kind of principle.
No way, that is different. What he just described does share some characteristics with the problem that Alex described, because both of them share the idea that the more the population size is, right? I don't know if this is going to come out properly. The larger the population size is, the more likely you are to be within that population. So if there's an exponential growth in a population size and you're trying to figure out just through guessing where you fall in that timeline, so to speak, it's more likely you're going to fall somewhere where the population was the most, not necessarily towards the end, because that's assuming that the end did not suffer from some, precipitous decline in the population. So it could be somewhere in the middle, if this picture that I'm trying to sketch here is making any sense. But whichever part of the timeline has the largest population size is probably where you're going to fall. So both of these, the paradox that Alex described earlier and the story that Chris just talked about, do share that in common. The part that differs is the part about you dying. That part, as far as Alex's story goes, relies exclusively on this dice roll, because each time this dice is rolled, independently of the time before, by the way, it's a 1 in 6 chance. So if you're in one group, you only have that 1 in 6 chance. Sure, it's likely that you're going to be in a larger group of people, but the chances of that larger group of people dying is still a 1 in 6 chance, right? So it makes no sense to confuse these two different ideas in here. I hope this is making sense. But yeah, I don't know if they're just confused about this or if there's another way of thinking about this that I am missing here. But I would please love for someone to enlighten me on this if I am. Just a quick addendum to address a possible confusion. I went back in the video to verify that he did not say that everyone in the group was rolling the die. In other words, whether it's one person or 10 people in the group, the die is only rolled once, and whatever the result is applies to everyone within that group. So this precludes the idea that somehow if there are 10 people, there's more likely a chance that one of these 10 people is going to roll a 6, thereby killing everyone. So once again, another possibility that is completely implausible.
Exact same, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because
of the exponential growth.
Precisely.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, but it works.
But it's fascinating. It's the same kind of principle.
Works the exact same. Yeah.
As long as that graph is going up at the requisite speed, then yeah.
Right, and this is the exact same thing.
I mean, the version on the website actually involves snake eyes. So it's 2 dice, and instead of it being 1, then 2, then 4, it's 1, then 10, then 100, then 1,000.
Right.
They get kidnapped.
So it ramps up more quickly.
And now you're rolling snake eyes. So it's a 1 in 36 chance. And it turns out that if you add up the probability of like, n number of cases, it's something like a 90% chance versus the half that you get to press, which just seems ludicrous. And it seems that 2 things are true at once, depending on just how you look at the problem. So sometimes problems like this are just...
Okay, I have to re-emphasize this confusion here. There is a probability that has to do with the chances of you being in the larger population size. But that is independent of the chances of you being in a population or a set of victims who ends up dying. These are 2 completely different probabilities. I don't know how the probability of you being within a larger population gets to be conflated with the probability of you dying, which is 1 in 6 here. I don't get it. Someone please help me out here.
To do versus the half that you get to press, which just seems ludicrous. And it seems that 2 things are true at once, depending on just how you look at the problem.